Hello, listeners and foil fanatics. It's Brandon from Tinfoil Tales. I want to take a moment of your time before the episode starts to let you know about the new live stream show I have coming out called Tinfoil Tales After Dark. Tinfoil Tales After Dark will be live streamed exclusively on YouTube on the last Thursday of every month at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It will be similar to the normal episodes, as there will be a guest on there to share their experiences, but that's not all. You can also be a part of the conversation in the live chat. You can ask questions, talk with other listeners, and even hop on the screen and share your experiences with all of us live. It's going to be a fun and engaging monthly episode that I hope everyone enjoys. Make sure to head over to the Tinfoil Tales YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Mark your calendars for Thursday, February 29th, and every last Thursday of each month to take part in Tinfoil Tales After Dark discussions. Now let's get back to the normal episode.
And I just turned around and I hauled ass out of there. I was done. I wasn't dealing with that.
The hypocrisy of the cult is one of the things that turned me away the quickest.
When I turned my headlights on, it turned and looked at us, and one of the things I remember the most were the eyes were glowing red.
I see an orb of light. It is just circling these steps like it is waiting for me.
And he begins to tell them that he saw a UFO. They're basically like, what are you talking about? That's 7 foot up on a tree, peeking around it, and that's where I saw the top of the muzzle, nose, and the eyes. As soon as I made eye contact with this thing, it felt like death.
Welcome back to Tinfoil Tales. I'm your host, Brandon Wright. Tonight's episode, we're going to be joined by my guest, Debbie Hatswell. She has been researching into cryptids and other paranormal experiences for over 40 years, and she reached out to me to come on here and talk about a little bit of what she's experienced herself, which got her on the path to looking into these sort of things. Before we bring her on, though, little things we need to talk about. If you've ever had an experience and you'd like to be on an episode of Tinfoil Tales, you can send an email to tinfoiltalespodcast@gmail.com. We'll get you scheduled on a future episode. If you want to help the podcast, you can leave a 5-star review. You write one out, I'll make sure to read it on an upcoming episode, give you a shout out. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can leave a review. The 5-star definitely helps with the rankings. You can share the podcast around. That helps get the word out there for other potential listeners, which means potential guests for the show. So new episodes coming from that. Anything you guys do, I definitely appreciate all that. Make sure to follow us on any of the social medias, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever's out there. I'm sure I'm a part of it. You can be on there too. Make sure to check out the website, tinfoiltales.com. You can listen to the episodes on there. There's also some recaps of the episodes in the blog section. Thinking about adding, if anyone sends experiences or anything like that, they can write them out and send it that way if they don't want to be a guest, and I can put them up on the blog as well. So anyone out there listening, if you have an experience and you don't want to be a guest, but you do have something that you'd like to share, you can email that to me. You can also contact me on the website's contact page and go that route too. But I think we're going to go ahead now and bring Debbie on. We've been playing tag the last couple weeks. Couldn't get anything to work with different time zones with her being in England and different things going on here and there, but we managed to get this figured out. So looking forward to talking with her. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. I'd like to take this time to welcome my guest tonight, Deborah. Thanks for coming on here and talking to me.
Oh, it's lovely. Thank you for inviting me on.
Not a problem. You'd reached out to me and you've done some investigations, quite a bit of them actually, into all sorts of topics. So I thought you'd be a great guest to have on here.
Yeah, it started a long time ago for me. 56 now, so I've been at it, I think, about 40 years researching cryptids. But I've had paranormal events before that when I was a child, so kind of a lifetime thing, really.
Now, with all the research and everything that you've done, have you ever had any actual encounters with a cryptid that you've seen?
To explain a little bit of context, I didn't have any kind of knowledge of Bigfoot, cryptids, anything like that, really. Obviously, I'm from England. I'm from the northwest of England. And in 1982, I was 15, and I was with my friend in a country park. Very normal day. and I caught something a movement really out of the corner of my eye in the greenery, and this thing went out, and I can only describe him as, to me, he's always been the man ape. He looked, for all intents and purposes, like a man and an ape that had been pushed together. I didn't see his body. I only saw him from like mid-chest up. But that terrified me. That event absolutely terrified me. And it had a remarked effect on my life. So it was at that point I started looking into what it possibly could have been that I'd seen. I was hoping it was going to be like an escaped animal from the zoo or something like that, but it never panned out like that for me. And fortunately, as an investigator, I've been able to find other cases in my town that started in the 50s, and last one being in the 2000s. So I'm not the only one who's seen him. I just don't know what he is. I have all the same questions that any other cryptid witness would have.
Yeah, I don't know what they honestly are, what they people see. I've never seen one of those personally, so can't say for sure. But it's always been something that's intrigued me, especially with all the sightings people are reporting. It can't all just be mistaken identities. Like there's too many sightings and weird instances that happen for people just to be mistaken seeing something.
Yes, yeah. I would agree, and I see the patterns because as the reports started to come in when I was younger, one way of keeping on top of them was to pin them on a map, and that turned into a whole Google map. And I have a background in geological profiling, so basically using statistics to find out where the next best place to put a new home development or the next best place to put the new casino. So I kind of had a background in that, and I realised that by plotting the cryptid sightings, because I only ever did cryptid sightings back then, I might be able to see a pattern form it almost. And I kind of did. It's almost like very similar to America, where the majority of the sightings follow the mountain ranges. So the Appalachian Trail, for instance, or the Rocky Mountains. And as you get into the drier areas, then the sightings become far less. But they are there. And now, fortunately, I've worked in every country in the world, and every single country that you can think of has a history and a modern sighting of a large, sometimes small, hairy animal, creature, whatever name you want to give it, that lives in the woodland and kind of stays elusive to humans. So it isn't just an American, Russian, Canada. I know we think that, but it's not. There's a vast, vast history of them all across the world.
Yeah, you've got China's got their own version. Russia has theirs. I think Australian has one. Like every continent that I'm aware of, besides Antarctica, because who knows what's going on down there.
Yeah, and
they all got one.
You look at the Native Americans anniversary, Alaskan natives. Back in the day, before there was global communication, these stories were being kept in tribes and passed down in families. And we were all discussing the same things before we could have had this conversation. So like in Wales, is a very long history of what they would class as like a werewolf type creature, so a wolf-like man that stands up on two legs. And in England, in the UK, it's a woodwolf, which is more of an ape-like hairy human that hides in the woodlands. And you can find them all across the world, like you say, Australia, Japan, as the Inca do. Trying to think, the Russian wild man and the reports in Europe, very different, very accepted in Europe. It's seen as almost a lucky thing to see them, and they just accept that they're wild people and live just a different life to normal humans. I don't know. I just don't know. I've taken reports that have been very supernatural in origin, and other reports that are very flesh and blood. So I'm still on the fence, me. I'm not an expert. I can't tell you what they are. But I can tell you the theories behind what they might be, if you get what I mean. I've done it for that long.
Mm-hmm. What are the theory? What do you think they could be?
When I started out, I had to answer. Because I'm a witness to something, apparently I have to know all of the answers to what he was, like where was he from, what he could possibly be, what did he eat, how would he mate, all of those questions, what I call the frequently asked questions. The research that I've done over the years has led me, my own personal experience is that there's more than one thing that we're dealing with. And when you look at the descriptions, there's the very typical let's say North American Sasquatch, or over 9 feet tall, hair on the face, completely hair covered in the body. But then you have what are classed as almost like caveman reports or ancient man, wild man. So I try and separate them to see if there's a difference within them. For me, I believe that they are some form of archaic human, somewhere on the same hominid line as us, in the same way that we bred with Neanderthal. We probably bred with these guys. They're far more suited to this planet than we are. They don't need homes. They don't need all the things that we need to live on the planet. We find them in every country. So that would say to me, they've either been here as long as us or longer. But there are some experiences that talk of them almost vanishing in front of their eyes. Or so is there a dimensional element to this, or is that a natural ability that we don't understand in the same way that we didn't understand what an octopus was when we first came across it? I don't know. I really don't know. You will have heard talk of footprints that suddenly appear in a field and then just automatically vanish again after several steps. I don't know how that's happening, unless it is the natural ability of the hair that they have to kind of mirror our surroundings, because you also get those reports where people say, I could see the trees moving, but I couldn't see what was moving them. I could hear it, I could smell it, I knew it was there, but I couldn't get eyes on it. It was like the Predator out of the film. Mm-hmm. So you just get, it's like a tapestry, but with lots of missing weaving, and we're trying to weave that back together again by each individual witness giving us a tiny bit of what happened to them. And if we don't share them on podcasts like this or in books or, map them, they'll just go into obscurity. And all those hints and little clues, we won't have them anymore. It's quite sad, really.
I think with the way we are today, obviously with podcasts like mine and other ones out there, and there's all sorts of documentaries now, there's a lot more interest, I feel like, with with Sasquatch, with other cryptid sightings, and obviously the UAP stuff going on here in America and all this other stuff that's been more open. Just thinking like 15, 20 years ago, I'd have never thought we'd be having conversations about any of this type of stuff, really.
Agreed.
It's very, very taboo, but now it seems it's still got that stigma to it, but it's not as bad as it used to be. There's a lot more open about it, I think.
I think there's been a change as well. There's been some kind of change from about 2017, that the sightings of all phenomena across the world are on the increase. More UAPs, more ghosts or paranormal, what we would class as paranormal and entity reports, more Dogman reports, more Bigfoot reports. So that's got to be more people coming forward, obviously. And it's much easier, as you say, to report these days. Well, I've also noticed, you mentioned yourself the UAP and the disclosures we're having now. We've gone from the 1970s where there are no aliens at all out there in space, no matter what you say, to all governments now sharing what they have. Are they getting us ready for something? Because most of the films that you go to at the moment for children have a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch in them. You see them in advertisements now. It's becoming almost like we're dumbing them down like we did with the alien life form. So if you kind of ridicule it and make it silly, people may accept it much easier. I've got to ask, as a conspiracy theorist, as people call me, is there a reason for this disclosure? Is there something coming? And they're about to say, well, actually, yeah, there are aliens walking along this earth, and there are Sasquatch, and we have hidden all these things from you over time. And how do we navigate that going forward without mass panic and war? I don't know, because I think there's a lot of money involved. If you suddenly declare that there's Sasquatch in, say, Washington State, what do you do about logging? What do you do about mining? What do you do about all those things, putting the pipelines in and things like that? You'd have to kind of, there'd be a species in their own right, wouldn't they? If we could prove it, they'd have to have land put away for them. So I think it's within the government's interest to not tell us what's really going on. But we are being drip fed at the moment. I think that's very clear.
I've always kind of thought that if these things do exist, kind of like what you just mentioned, there's definitely an aspect to them that they don't want us to know. And I think a lot of it's because of monetary reasons, because realistically, money is the root of everything, it seems like.
It
And
is.
if there's proof that any of these type of things exist, it uproots that whole system, especially with Sasquatch. If they live out in the forest and you can't be out cutting down homes, there's going to be a lot of regulations, even more stipulations into stuff like that. So it's going to uproot a lot of that industry. And
Tourism. Look at tourism; it would die off in the national parks. You
national
know,
parks are an interesting thing in general because there's so many reports of strange
missing.
activity and missing people, and yeah.
Exactly. Can you imagine? So you've got that, and some of the people into this subject know about that. But I would imagine there's probably 70% of the rest of the universe that doesn't know about the connection between cryptid reports, areas of high energy, and missing people or strange disappearances. Bridgewater Triangle springs to mind in America. Once the public put that together with the fact that the knowledge that maybe they've been walking alongside these things for a very long time without realizing that, I think there would be mass uproar. I don't know how the government would be able to keep a lid on that. I think it would just be a tipping point for most folks. I think a lot of people feel that they've been sold a bad deal. We did what you asked. We put the time in at school, and then we went out and we got the job and we got the car that you asked us to get. We've got this home that's forever unattainable, and we're there on the rat race and we're doing it daily. Surely there's more to this. Most of us have started that at some point in our lives. And I think if they came forward and said, well, actually, yeah, aliens do exist, or yeah, Sasquatch does exist, I think that'd be a tipping point for most folk, and they'd be like, that's me done. It's like, government and society is probably the most dysfunctional relationship you're ever going to have in your life. And if you can walk away from that, you become a much happier person. I think some of it is about keeping us dumbed down, stopping us being strong, taking away that confidence. You didn't see a Bigfoot that day. You saw a cow side on. People told me that I saw a homeless man, a man in a suit, an actual bin liner, like a garbage bag that I'd just mixed up in my mind because I was an hysterical 15-year-old. What I saw that day shaped my life immensely because I've never been able to get over it. And I've done everything I can to try and prove what I saw. I'm not a liar. I did see that day. I've been very lucky. So I've met people over the years that have been able to say to me, look, Deb, things have changed. But I didn't know anything about the subjects of UFO or paranormal, only from a personal point of view, never from an investor. I had to go and learn it. So I made sure I found the best people in each subject and just learn whatever. I just soaked it in as much as I can. And that's frightening because like me and you, we're on the side of the screen where we know about all. So when you pick a holiday, you probably think of all the reports that you've, in the interviews that you've done or people that you've spoken to that had an experience there. So you start to realise just how many. If I was to tell you there were over probably 600 reports of an ape man in England, in the UK, in that tiny little island, people wouldn't believe me. But we have the same prints that you find. We have the same witness testimony. We have the same description. We have the same air samples, same kind of habitat. And when you look at that and you take as many reports as I do, then you think this is not just about England or Russia or America. As I said, it's a worldwide thing. And if all of us woke up at the same time, we could really overthrow the elite. There's not that many of them. Everything we do goes upwards. And it's all about money, like you said. It just gets funneled upwards, and we're just the ones who are making it for them. It's my soapbox thing. It's like empowering people. Because you've spoken to people yourself who've probably had a lot of trauma from an event that's happened to them, and you kind of stuck with that. There's no way you can go with that.
There's definitely a lot to people that have actually had experiences to those that have not, I've noticed. And even with people that host podcasts, I feel like there's people out there that've never had any experiences and they host these types of podcasts, and it's hard for them to relate to people, to those. Yeah. Me personally, I was told that whatever I saw was a bear. And right. I know the difference between what I saw and what a bear is. So I didn't see a bear.
Do you mind telling me a bit about that? What happened?
Basically, back in 2007,
Mhm.
without going into a whole, I've had episodes about it or whatever, without taking up too much time, I was coming home from work and a coworker had swerved off the road in front of me, and there was a
Yeah.
big black shape strolling down the road, and it was moving in a very weird, glitchy movement. Like it didn't look natural, very unnatural movements. And I had to swerve to come to a stop, and it walked past my vehicle. I
Yeah.
didn't see a head and I didn't see any arms, but it was at least 7 foot tall.
Right.
And we'd pulled into a parking lot, tried to figure out what we just saw. I said, I'm going to go back and look. He followed me, and we went back, and there was a big black dog laying across the road.
Right.
And I got out of the vehicle, and he's yelling at me not to get out. And I got out of the vehicle, and I walk up to it, and this thing stands up on two legs. And I wasn't afraid or anything, but like it was only about my height.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it looked like a black wolf German Shepherd type face, and it was really puffy fur. And then it kneels down and it goes off towards the woods. And then we never seen it again. And like the shorter version is we didn't talk about it. I went back to work. He didn't want to talk about it. He said he didn't want anyone to know about it. He didn't want to think we were crazy. So for 15 years, I never talked about it.
Yeah.
And then when I
yeah.
have mentioned it, people are like, "Oh, you saw a bear," and we don't have bears here.
No,
So-
you know the difference. Anyway, you know the
Yeah.
difference.
I was 15 feet away from this thing. I can tell the difference between a dog-looking, wolf-looking thing or a bear.
Very
And
much so.
And our headlights were on it. So, but yeah,
Really?
I don't know of any type of dog that stands up on two legs.
I mean, to validate, I've took hundreds of those reports in America, Canada, Russia, England, all across the world of upright, what you would describe as almost as a German Shepherd or an Alsatian, as I would call it in Europe, up on two legs. Not very dog-like in the body, in all honesty. Some people even mention hands and feet rather than paws. And when you said it knelt down and then went off into the woods, you just reminded me of a case that I'm working on at the moment. And that was in France. That was a gentleman, 2003. About 3 o'clock in the morning, was on the road driving. And as he's coming off what we would call a farm lane to go onto the main highway, as the Americans call it, at the corner on the gravel road is what he described as a female. Exactly what you saw, puffy fur, snow, ears on top of head, knelt down on the gravel, but it was he said it was clearly female, had breasts. And as the car lights have hit it, she's just stood up and run off into the woods and gone. And he said the same. He said, I wasn't frightened. I was just in awe of what I was looking at. And people are saying to him, oh, it will just be an ordinary wolf or something. You know the difference. Your brain kind of tries to work out what it is that you're seeing.
No.
You know, it's like a file of facts, isn't it? Like a really quick, oh, is it a dog? Is it a deer? What is it? You know, what is it that I'm looking at? And you just kind of left with that. That was what it was like for me. But the creature that you're describing, some people would call a werewolf or a dogman or a wolf. There's a name for it wherever you go. And thousands of people see them all across the world and make reports of them. You know,
Yeah.
and they're just not believed. They're just not believed. So I think, how could you believe someone for seeing a Bigfoot? Or you can believe somebody who's seen a spirit or a UFO or they've been abducted. But you don't believe this person because you've never heard the description of the creature before. Just look at the Loup Garou in France. It goes back all the way in history. You know, and it's this creature that you saw that's often seen road crossing or on the edges of road can often be found as well around ancient burial sites or new cemeteries. So almost like Anubis, something to do with death in a way, like the shucks of England.
That's kind of where I relate things back to is there's been descriptions of these dogmen, wolfmen type creatures for years. Obviously, Anubis was supposed to be a jackal, but it's still like a wolf type thing.
Yeah.
From the ancient Egyptians. Now, obviously, they had many depictions and weird things. They had like other creatures on human bodies as well. But even with the ancient Sumerians, they had even like weird animal heads on top of people figures and some of their stuff as well.
Yeah. This cave paintings, very early cave paintings in Europe, where it's a man on the bottom and a wolf on the top. So like your typical hybrid cross between the two. You listen to stories in Poland where they speak of them being in the woodlands when the Germans come during World War II. Some villages have been lost out there, and they've said that the wolves kept them alive overnight almost. Scotland, you have the wolves. It was said in history that they just wanted to be left alone, really. But if somebody in the village was starving or was really, really sick, they would come in and help. And all they wanted was just to be left alone within the forest themselves. And you just think, Saint Christopher is supposed to be a dog-headed man as well. I came across that a number of years ago when I was researching. I didn't know that. And there were some ancient dog tribes, the Benandanti and the Cynocephales. They were very positive beings that fought on the side of good against evil at night so that humans could rest, so we could sleep. They were kind of like the guard, spiritual guard dog kinds of thing. And I wonder if that's why they're kind of seen around ancient burial sites in that kind of way. Now, don't get me wrong. I've taken reports where they've been incredibly aggressive, where they've chased cars or they've had red eyes or they've chased people out of the woods. But I don't think any being is negative or positive. It doesn't work like that for me. I think maybe some of them are just like that, they just hate humans and that's it, They must see us do some awful things in the woodlands. So you don't know that. To me, I don't think that they're just an animal. I don't think it's a wolf stood up on two legs. I think it's far more than that, and it's incredibly intelligent. I've worked on cases in Edinburgh only last month, where what we're looking at looks like you or I would bait a trap to bring an animal in. So what you've got is a newly killed deer that's been left in a hollow, and almost like early Neanderthals would sit up atop a cliff and they'd throw rocks at the animal as it came through. It was an easy way of killing them. This looked like we're talking, you must know of the Land Between the Lakes case.
Yes.
Eddie's not that far. It's only the other end of the lake. And this guy's got what looks like a deer. I can send you the photographs. And it just looks like it's been bit through the head with a canine tooth. And it's left out there. And I said to him, that's really strange because the meat's there. What's it out there to trap? So it wouldn't be to bring the deer in because you've already got the deer made. And it's a puzzle. I don't know. It's just a new case that I've started working. So he's going to put some GoPro cameras up and we'll see what we find on the property.
I think the Land Between the Lakes thing, there's been two different versions that I've heard. One was a family that got slaughtered. And then there was the Martin Grimes story that he came out with. And there's been other reports and everything, but every time when I hear people talk about Land Between the Lakes, they always reference this family that was murdered, I think, back in the 80s. And this one guy claims he was a survivor, this and that. And there's been people that have claimed that they've disproven him and he's not honest or whatever. It seems to be that way with everything. Somebody somewhere is always going to try and disprove somebody.
Luckily for me, I don't know the case very well. So I'm not really. When those reports came into me, I got 3 reports from the area. None of them mentioned the Land Between the Lakes. So these are separate people that have made reports of creatures around that area. So luckily, I was able to not be biased either way because I haven't heard. Like you, I understand that there's a side of it where a family was killed and went missing. And then there was another guy that came out years later. That's as much as I know about it, in all honesty. And for all I've worked with people who've done a lot of research into the case, it's never really come up in conversation for me. So I was interested because obviously I've taken 3 reports from 3 separate people over a 10-year period around that lake area. So I'm always waiting for another report to come in from there. Because the 3 people have, reported. And like I say, this guy, it was more, not that he'd seen a creature, it was more, he was noticing strange things on his land. And it was like, well, let's keep an eye on it then. That's all we can do, really, isn't it? Get some GoPros up and see if anything happens.
There's been reports around here as well recently. And part of me wants to try and go out and look for
Yeah.
stuff for my own, just for my
Yeah.
own personal thing. But at the same time, I'm not one that wants to go out and what am I going to do if I actually run face to face with this thing again? Maybe this time it's not going to run away.
Yeah. I had the same dilemma. I have the same dilemma, obviously. What what do you do in that situation? I don't want to see it again. A lot of people say to me, "Oh, you're so lucky." I don't feel lucky. It was awful. Seeing that thing was awful. It was like, are my parents lying to me? Are there monsters out there and they've told me that there aren't? It's like, I hadn't even had I don't think I'd even had a boyfriend at that point. It was only 15. And this thing was awful. It was horrid. It was really big and it was much bigger than my dad. And it was right close to my school. So I'd have to pass that area all the time to go to school. And I still had 12 months to do that. I hated it. And the idea of seeing it again, just no. Even this far distance, even with all these years between us and all my knowledge I'm a parapsychologist, I'm a cryptid hunter, still, no, I don't want to see it again. I don't. I wouldn't want to being hypnotized and going back to that day safely and seeing if I can look at the situation and not be a frightened 15-year-old. But it was in the same sense that if a gorilla had come out of that bush or a lion, it was the same fear as I was primal, utterly primal. I was on my feet. I pushed my friend to the floor, and that's not me. And I did it without thinking. And what I was thinking was, he can get her before he gets me. And I was off and running. And my parents just said, "Oh, it's probably a homeless man." Or like, there's no way on this earth that it was a homeless man. You don't give 40 odd years of your life to something.
Yeah.
That's
That's
it shaped me. It did. Is the only way I can put it. My girls have grown up with it. They know about it. They know that's why I couldn't take them camping when they were kids. I couldn't go into the woodlands and stay overnight. I couldn't do any of those things that my parents did with me. I was too scared.
No, it does impact you just because, and I've even said, people have asked me, has it ever impacted me what I'd saw? And for the most part, I was like, no, not really. I'm doing a podcast about this stuff. I used to be very skeptical. I didn't think anything like this existed. So yeah, it has impacted me now that I've come to talk about it. I was like, yeah, I wouldn't be doing this show if I didn't have that experience. So
yeah, I think it makes you more open-minded as well. So like people will say to me, "Well, you haven't got a background in the paranormal. How would you help?" Well, I know what trauma's like. I know what it's like to see something and not be believed. So I might not be able to help that person myself, but I can put them in touch with someone that in the paranormal realm that I've spoken to, That's my skill set, is putting people in touch with each other. Because I know what it's like to think that you're out there on your own and nobody else has seen it, only you. So you must be absolutely crackers and say you must be mental in some way. But then as you start to find other people, and believe me, I don't go into a case and give them information. When I go into a case, I want to hear everything they've got to say before I share anything with them. So it's not like I'd go into them and say, "Oh yeah, there's several dogman sightings around here. Tell me about yours." And I speak to a person and I say, "What happened? Don't start with the sighting report. Let me what were you doing that day before you?" And then I get them to tell me the report and tell me all the way through. And normally another question I'll ask is there anybody in your family that's experienced the paranormal, UFO, any form of what we would class as otherworldly? Because sometimes you find that sometimes it's like that. Grandma maybe had experience with spirit and, mum may have an experience with something else. Sometimes it kind of runs in a family line like that. But some people are just going about their everyday business and they have this one-off event like me and you, and you just spend the rest of your life thinking, what was that? What was it? Why that day? Why me? Why did I see it that day? What was it doing out there in the road?
mm-hmm.
You must have bashed yourself that.
Yeah, it's something, as bad as I try not to think about it, it is something that's always been in the back of my mind that I tried to write it off. It was just a normal dog because, again, it didn't have the stereotypical werewolf features. It didn't have the human-looking body or the hands or feet.
Right.
But I can't rationalize what was the first thing that was walking in the road because it was so much bigger than whatever the dog was. That's the one thing that I always get tripped up on. Whatever the thing that didn't have a head or arms that we couldn't tell, it had to have been about 7 foot tall. When we went
Yeah.
back, the dog was only like 6 foot tall. So,
I can. Yeah. So what was that? Yeah.
so it was the first thing. And what is this dog standing up? A lot of people seem to tell me that they think it was a shapeshifter or some interdimensional being transitioning into our world. That's why when we first seen it, it was just taking shape, and then we seen it again, and it was this dog. I have no idea. Like I said, I don't really have an opinion one way or another because I just know
Yeah.
the
You-
whole thing. The whole thing seems crazy to me, but I know what I saw.
No, exactly that. You have this event, and then you've got to try and explain it to people, and you don't really understand it yourself, you know. But your word would be good enough in a court of law. If you witnessed a crime, we would accept your word as an honest man that what you were telling us was correct. So we do that with your sighting because you're an honest man. You're very erudite. You know what you're doing. You don't put the hours in that you've put into podcasting for nothing. You know, we all have our reason at the back of it. And I think most of us are just out there really to find out more. You know, tell me your experience and I'll tell you my experience. We might be able to pull a clue out, you know, between us. What I started doing in the UK, I haven't been able to do it for a while now, but I started in about 2016. And I would just tell people where I was going to be that day. And I'd rock up with my friend and we'd just get a fire going and we'd put a campfire and have a brew and a cup of tea and people would just come out and meet us. And I'd start and I'd say, like, my name's Debbie and this is what happened to me in 82. And then other people would share their experiences. And it was a really good thing. We got it rolling really well. And then, unfortunately, when COVID jumped in, the UK's never really gone back to how it was before, pre-COVID. So we started with probably 15 or 20 people the first time. And that really has grown to a massive community online. And so if a case comes in now, not in my area, and I can't travel to it, I know people in that area that are happy to speak to the witness, happy to go out to the area themselves, or the witness themselves will do that for me. They'll say, right, I've had this experience and I know you can't get up here in the northeast, so I'm going to go back. Is it okay if I talk on camera about what I've seen? And yes, please, because that's the best that I can get out of you. If you can go back to that area and say, this is where we were, this is how big it was, this is what we saw that night, in your own words. I think that's very impactful. And then I just put that out on my YouTube channel or on the podcast, and invariably somebody will message me and say, that report that you put out on Saturday, I've had an experience in that area. Or that report that you put out on Saturday, it isn't exactly the same area. I had it maybe 600 miles away, but the creature was the same. You know, there's always another witness out there on their own. So even at times when I get trolled, I've had stalkers where I've had to move house and all manner of drama that goes on in the cryptid world that you know of.
Mm-hmm.
Every time that happens, I think, I'm not doing it again. I'm shutting my laptop and I'm walking away. I've done 40 years. I've put my time in. I'm done. And my husband will say, there's another Debbie out there. There is another Debbie out there who thinks that she's mental because she's seen something. And the next day I'll get an email or I'll get a Facebook message or, you know, someone will WhatsApp me and, Deb, can you help? I've seen this maybe, 10 years ago. Or, Deb, can you help? I've seen something today. Or, Deb, can you help? There's a lot of stuff going on at the house and, I'm really worried. I had to learn a lot of stuff fast. And now I deal with, I don't think there's a phenomenon that I haven't dealt with over the years. So say my caseload for this month, there is a haunted house about 7 miles away from me. Really quite easy. Grandparents have had experiences in it. Mum's had experiences in it. Teenage boy in the house, things ramp up, poltergeist activity. That happens around teenagers. It's just one of those things. If you just asked me that question 20 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to answer it. But I've worked so many cases in so many different areas. I'm like a jack of all trades when it comes to like the paranormal or the supernatural, if you get what I mean. And I think what's different about me is I don't fear anything. What I faced that day was the scariest thing in this earth. Absolute scariest thing in this earth. And I got away from that. I didn't do it dignified. I got away from it running and screaming. But I survived that event like you survived yours and just kind of carried on with my life. And it's put me in a unique position now where when I speak to other people, I'm speaking to them not just as a podcaster, but as a fellow experiencer where I can nod at them and say, yeah, actually, that makes a lot of sense to me. That's what it was like for me. He could have been a time slip, what I saw. He could have come through some dimension. He could have been a time slip. He could have been a paranormal thing. He could have been flesh and blood, but that just seems impossible with where he was. I don't think I'll ever know. I'll never, ever know. But if I had to weigh it up now and you asked me with a gun to my head whether I wouldn't have done this, would I? If I hadn't seen him, I wouldn't have led this life and I wouldn't be where I am now. So I might have been a very different person. And I think it changed me for the better in some ways. It made me very open-minded. So my experience is impossible, completely and utterly impossible. But it happened.
Someone told me that people like us that this happens to and we do the things that we do, we were meant to see the things we've seen because we're here to help the people that also experience the same thing.
That's what it feels like to me. That's exactly, it feels like I've been trained for this my entire life. I had strange events in my bedroom when I was a kid, when I was really small. And I never put that together with what happened to me when I was 15. They were separate events, completely separate events. And now I'm not so sure about that. Because what I'd see in the bedroom would terrify me, absolutely terrify me. And I found a way really of kind of shrinking them down so they weren't frightening anymore. So by the time I got to 8 or 9, it wasn't happening. I kind of shut it down myself intuitively without realising. But there used to be a feeling. When I was a kid going to bed, I was terrified. Oh, I was absolutely terrified. And this feeling had come on a split second before this thing would appear in the corner. Like. And that day, when I saw that thing when I was 15, that feeling was there again for a split second. And I remember having the amount of time to go, oh no, because I wasn't on my own this time. I had somebody with me. And I thought and I kind of, maybe I don't know, something inside me knew that something awful was about to happen. It was like a millisecond. I didn't really have time to think of the thought. And obviously now with research and I speak to other people, lots of people have experiences from being like 4 or 5 in the bedroom, 3 and 4, and they go through life with them. So I try and teach people not to be frightened of it. I think there are things on this earth that kind of feed off children. I think some kids are chosen before they're even born, unfortunately. Like I say, it runs in family lines for a lot of folk. And I think my most traumatic cases are my cases what involve children because it takes me back to me being a kid and kind of going through it. But I had a strange experience. I don't really know my parents' families. Other than grandparents, I don't really know any other generations back before that. So I did a DNA test about 2 years ago. Just generally wanted to know like what my family heritage was and things like that. And I found my grandmother's family. And I'm kind of 6 in line from Mary Butters, the Carmoney Witch, as they called her in Ireland. But what was strange was I managed to meet lots of cousins and second cousins and things like that. Some go up to the age 90 and others are quite young. And every single one of them had paranormal events. Every single one of them that I found had more than one story to tell me about being a kid and having experiences at home. And I remember being about, I know what house I was in, so I must have been about 3, like 2 or 3. And I was in my cot and I was absolutely terrified. And I remember somebody stroked my head, like really gentle, and it was quite soothing. And I think about that when I got frightened. I think about that touch, and it kind of helped a lot. So all these years later, I was speaking to what would be my second cousin, Linda, who's in her 80s, and she said, I've never really had paranormal experiences, Mida, but I know things. I can walk into a room and know everything about the people in the room, or I know something is about to happen. But when my daughter Andrea was a baby and she used to get frightened, somebody used to come into the room and stroke her head. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness. So she's in one side of the UK and I'm in the other side of the UK, totally different generations. But she's had that gentle touch as well. Is that one of my ancestors? I don't know. I hope that's what it feels like to me, maybe. You know?
Yeah, I think when it comes to stuff like that, we never really know. We can have an idea or a hope of what it could be, but at the end of the day, I don't think we ever really truly know what it is and what the intentions are.
Yeah, it was just, I don't know, it was strange. It got kind of strange because I had to work a case with a gentleman, and he wasn't from this area. He was here for work. And because the train had gotten me late, he had to stay at a hotel where I live. He's in that hotel, and unfortunately, he said, it's only about 9:30 at night, 10 o'clock at night. He settled down to sleep, and the next thing, he feels somebody in the bed next to him. And he said, in me panic, I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm in the wrong room. Or someone else is in the wrong room. He said, and as he turned over, there's a female in the bed next to him. He said, and all I could think of was, oh, as a man, you know, you wake up and there's a lady in the bed next to you. You're probably worried that you're going to be on a charge sheet or something. And he said, I didn't know what to do. So I tapped her gently to say, I think you're in the wrong room. He said, and the next thing she turned over and started hitting me. And she kind of really hit him a few times. And then she vanished, like completely vanished. And he said, I was so upset. He said that I thought that I'd frightened her. And he said, I didn't know what to do. I just didn't know what to do. He said, and I sat on the end of the bed and I just said to her, look, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to frighten you. Can you like come back if you want, kind of thing? So I looked into it for him, and a lady had died 2 years before in that hotel, and she died in her sleep. She died in an argument with a partner, and she'd gone and stayed the night at the hotel, and she was a diabetic, and she hadn't took her meds before she went to bed, and unfortunately she died in her sleep. And I said to him, possibly she doesn't know that she's passed. She's still in the bed, you know, she doesn't know. She's there every night, and she's woke up and there's been a man in her bed. It's like two worlds have collided that night. But he got stranger. So I found these mystery cousins. So this is like 18 months on, and we're talking, me and my mystery cousin, and he said, you know, Deb, he said, we had a strange one about 18 months ago. He said, there was something wrong with my car. We couldn't get a mechanic, so we had to get one to come from down south. And when he got here, he had to stay at this hotel in town at a travel lodge. He said, when he come in the morning, he was white. And I said to him, what's wrong? And he said, oh, I had an awful night last night. He said, I stayed at the travel lodge hotel and I woke up and there was a woman in my bed. He said, I just can't get over it. And I said to him, was his name Billy? And he went, yeah, it was. How do you know? I said, because he's one of my cases. I worked it about 18 months before you met, you know, like before, after you'd met him kind of thing. But yeah, that's a strange coincidence, isn't it?
Some people don't believe in coincidences.
I don't believe in coincidences either. That was meant to be in some way, wasn't it?
Uh-huh.
So I did go back. I didn't go back into the hotel. I went back with my husband and I sat outside and had a conversation with her. And I said, you know, just to let you know that you're not bound here. You can move on. And unfortunately, you've passed away in your sleep and you might not know that, you know. I was hoping I could book the room and just stay in the room overnight. But then I didn't want to turn it into like I don't know, the right thing at the time. I asked myself what was the right thing to do. And I just thought, just go up to the hotel in the car and ground yourself and just have a conversation with the Deb and just say, look, I don't think you know that you've moved on, but you have. And it's time, you know, you don't have to stay here, kind of thing. Your loved ones will come for you. And I kind of left it like that. I thought that was the best thing to do.
Yeah, I think when we can only try to do what's best. Yeah, when it comes to spirits or anything otherworldly like that. I don't know what the other side is. I've never experienced it. Like I said, I'm kind of I've got my own little thing. So it's like it's hard to give advice or something. Like I can go through and say things here and there, but at the end of the day, I don't have really any idea of what I'm doing.
I'm like you. People will ask me, oh, where did you train? There isn't any way you can go and train. I kind of got through in the deep end, so I had to learn really fast. And I say I make mistakes. Okay, it's really, really is okay to make mistakes. That's how we learn. So if we get things wrong, that's fine. We've learned that it's either a lesson or a blessing. It's always like that. Things happen when they're supposed to. So if you can start to kind of trust your gut feeling, because that's what it's there for, you know, that's what guides us. If you can, like with me, people say, I don't understand how you can be so laid back about things. And I say, because what choice do I have? I can sit here and worry about it all day long. It's not going to change anything. Things will happen as they should, you know? And I just think each case is unique. Because each human is an individual, aren't they? So no cases are ever alike. And I just say to them, if you think I'm wrong, then you just tell them, just say, I don't think you're right on that one, Deb. Or if you think that you could do it better than me, tell me. That's what I need you for, you know, when I work with other investigators. Feel free to say, no, Deb, I think you're wrong. Let me take over, and then I will step back and you take over. Because at the end of the day, what's important to me is the person, like the witness, and how they kind of carry on going forward. So if say it's like your house is haunted, or you're one of those people who lives in a succession of haunted houses, eventually you have to admit that it's probably you. And you're the attractant. You're either emitting it or attracting it in some way. So if you can get you confident with that, build your skills with that, that'll change things for you, make things much easier. They still have to get up in the morning and take the children to school and go to work and pay all of the bills. They have to do everything that we have to do in normal life and put up with that as well. So it's trying to get them to balance that out and set some real boundaries, because we each can do that as an individual. You can set some really clear boundaries, you know, and say like, this is not acceptable to me. I work with a lot of females who have small children and things are happening in the bedroom, and I've said to them, what have you put in place up to now? And they've said, well, I've been in and I've had a word with it, and I've said, no, that's it, don't you come in there. And I said, well, you've done that intuitively. You don't need me. You're asking me permission for you to trust your own gut. Whatever your gut tells you to do, try it. And if you get it wrong, try something else, you know. That's much better than sitting there feeling helpless. Give that child the control back. Paint that bedroom. Change it round if he wants. I gave my grandson a torch when it was happening to him. And I said to him, just turn the torch on. If someone was in your bedroom and you're frightened of it, put the torch in it and tell it to leave. And it wasn't the torch that did the magic, as he calls it. That's just like Thor's hammer, isn't it? That's just something for your intent. What I was teaching him was to say, this is my room and you're not allowed to come in it and you're not allowed to frighten me. Because I needed that as a child. I needed my parents to say, what you're experiencing is real and we don't know what to do and we don't know how to help you. That would have been far more intuitive than, you're just naughty, go to bed. We don't believe you, go to bed. You're being dramatic, go to bed. Things were crawling out my wall, crawling out my bed. And as a small child, that is terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. And it took me till I was in my 50s to kind of say, no, that's not fair. That I should have been treated differently as a child. I wasn't being naughty, I was being terrorized. You know?
We've had some things here. I actually mentioned it on an episode that'll air before this one does, but just recently we've had some instances with our 2-year-old saying ghost,
right,
daddy, ghost. And I've got him recorded on here too. Like a couple weeks ago, he was come to me and said, there's ghost out. He barely talks, but he's plain as day saying ghost. So with some of the stuff that happened when we first moved in several years ago, and I went through the house and tried to banish whatever it was, I did it all over again right after he started talking about ghosts. I went through the whole house again, said whatever negative energies or spirits are here, you're not welcome. I don't want you here. Leave my children alone. And we haven't really had any instances else, so I don't know what else I'm supposed to do.
Well, you did it intuitively. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. The best advice that I would give you, if you walked in your child's bedroom and found a man in there, you wouldn't be overjoyed about it, would you? You'd treat him very differently. And that's what you do. You don't, it doesn't matter if you curse, it doesn't matter what you say, you've just got to mean it. You do not cross this path. Nothing can come into your home uninvited. Nothing. Yeah, and once we learn that, that's great. If you want to protect the house, just do that in every single room, like you've already done yourself, you know? Yep. Nothing's stronger than you. When it comes to protecting your child, there is nothing out there stronger than you. Absolutely nothing. And then if he wants to do something, maybe when he's 4 or 5, if he wants to change things, or he just says, you know, suddenly can we paint it blue, or can we just let him, just, you know, it's your room, this is your safe space. And you can have it any way you want, and nothing is allowed to come through that door. And if you do that with him or without him, it doesn't matter. We're just trying to teach them that they're in control of the situation. So he doesn't sound frightened, which is massive. This could just be his great-grandfather or his great-grandmother that's just coming to see him because they're attached by love. That happens. That happens from generation to generation. And if you're happy with how he feels, then I just think you've done what you needed to do and that's it. If you're sensitive to energy, then why would your son not be sensitive to energy?
Mhm.
It's in your bloodline, and it's probably the same for your wife. She'll probably know when you're in a mood without you even telling her. She'll probably have to pick up that the kids are poorly even without them saying anything. It's just, we all have these natural inbuilt abilities. We're just taught by society to ridicule them and see them as silly, and they're not. They're what kept you alive. When you were early man and you lived on this earth before language, that's how we communicated, human to human.
Yep.
As simple as that, And the more you use it, it's like riding a bike or learning to fish or learning to hunt. You just get better at it, And as long as it's not taking over your life, there has to be a balance in all things. There has to be times when you are not open to spirit or you are not open to doing it. I say, no, that's me done. I'm done for a week. I need a week off. You can't do it every day. You just completely drain your batteries and then you'd be no good to anybody. And I learned a long time ago that I can't do it for everybody. I have to teach them the tools and they have to do it for themselves. But you can't go around fixing things with people. But you can say, like I said to you, that's exactly what I would have done. I'd have done that. I'd have gone into that room and said, oh, no, I'm not having this. We had a lot of activity at the old house, and at the new house, we haven't had anything. But the first week when I moved in, I saw a dark shadow being in the what I would call a hallway, and I think I was just stressed from the move. I just went, oh no, we're not putting up with that here. Don't even think about it. Just turn around and walk right back out. I'm having none of it. And I've had nothing in the house. Nothing's happened at all. I just couldn't go through it again. I just want a house where everything's shut down. Because I do it so often, this has to be my safe place. And that is, lots of people say, oh, can we come and film at your house? And I think, no, you film when I'm out, you film when I do investigations, you film when I'm on, YouTube, you film when I'm on TV. My house is my house and I'm not doing anything in it. Whereas my husband has the right to that. He has the right to that privacy. He gives up so much of me that when I'm here, I just do ordinary stuff. We set the dog for a walk, I go horse riding, go up on the moor. And that's my way of my balance. That's my way of energizing myself, and then I have to jump back in and I have to work again, It's what I do. It's how I earn my living, and I make very little money at it. I have to point that out. But I'm rich in other ways. I have an amazing network around me. I meet people like you every single day, and I can sit down and have an ordinary conversation. Me and you could be having a coffee now in a cafe, and we're talking about subjects that other people see as taboo. And I want to normalize what me and you are doing. I want to be able to just sit down anywhere I want with anyone and just say, yeah, this happened to me as a child. And, have you ever been through anything? And they say, well, not with ghosts. It might be a UFO. Or, well, actually, no, but Uncle Harry did. And I just want it to be normal. I want it to be the same for us as it is for people who are just accepted. If you see a spirit, if you see a Victorian boy, people just go, oh, yeah, it's just a Victorian boy. But if you see a 7-foot creature that's got red eyes and he comes running at you down the road, that's not acceptable. Why? That Victorian boy might have been something showing itself as a boy so it can attract you in. Doesn't mean it's a boy. That's what he's showing. Some entities will do that. They will be the nicest thing in the world till they've got you. And then you've got the negative energies that will appear as your most frightening thought so that you can kind of feed on your energy. So I have to work within all of that. So you can imagine for me, when I close things at the end of the day, then it's like, right, I'm not doing anything now for a couple of days. I need to kind of come round from that and then I'll start again. And that's kind of what it's like. But don't get me wrong, I do enjoy what I do because I get to see the positive side of it on, the other way.
There's a lot that people that go into this stuff, I don't think anyone really understands unless they're going through it themselves what it takes to actually do what you do. And you're opening yourself up for all these different energies by going into and investigating, looking into it, trying to help people.
Yeah.
You're bringing all of that onto yourself as well. And I don't think people understand that. So there's a
It's,
lot, there's a lot to it.
yeah, there is. I mean, I had a case in September. I went into hospital just for a routine operation. And as I was in the hospital, somebody rang me, and an 88-year-old chap had saw something on his land for the first time in his life, and it had absolutely terrified him. He was a complete mess. And I said to him, I'm actually in my hospital gown, but if you give me 10 minutes, I'll sneak out to my car and I'll ring you. And that's what I did. I sat in the car and I rang him up, and he was absolutely terrified. Poor thing. He was in bed, and he'd got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. And as he stood up, typical werewolf, he said it tapped on the window with something that was the cross between a hand and a paw. He said, but it looked shocked to see me. It looked really frightened to see me. And obviously it frightened him. So I don't think there's many people that would have done what I did and just gone, right, I'll deal with it now. Because I'm thinking, he's 88, he's really, really poorly. This is the last thing you need, you know? So I asked him a couple of questions. I said, don't tell me anymore. Let me just ask you a few questions first. And like one of them I asked was if he was of Irish descent, and he said, yeah, he was. And I asked him what was negative on the land, and he said the house next door to the farm had some really negative things go on over the years. And it was said that several nuns had got impregnated and they buried babies on the land. I asked him if he'd been thinking about death, and he said he had, that he'd been to see a solicitor that week to set up his will and everything, and it was something that he was worried about. And like I asked him if he was there something in life that he was worried would hold him back when he was crossing over, because we all have those fears, and he said that there was. And then the final question I asked him was what was different about that night to all the other 88 years that he'd lived there. And he said he can't manage the stairs anymore, so his carer had brought his bed downstairs to the lounge in the front room. And they put air conditioning in for him. And unfortunately, not had time to put the curtains back up. So there was no curtains. And I said to him, all he wanted me to, he wanted the truth. And he wanted to know if it was going to come back and take it. And I said to him, well, if he wanted to come back and take you, it'd put you there and then, wouldn't it? You wouldn't be here. You'd just be one of the missing. I said, no, I don't think it's that. I said, because you're of Irish heritage and you've been thinking about death, there's an old Irish legend, really, that gets passed down from family to family. And it's kind of like the Morrigan. And it's this death wolf, as they call it, the Irish death wolf. Now, that's absolutely terrifying, I know. But it isn't in that sense. It kind of comes to walk you home. So at your darkest moments, you're most depressed or you're most ill, or when you're about to cross over, if you're worried or frightened that you're going to go to hell because of something that you've done or something like that, this wolf will turn up. So you've got a combination of that and this property at the side of them that's been used for satanic worship. So there's all like kind of awful paintings in there. So luckily that's being knocked down. So we get that's moving off the land. But I was able to say to him, no, I think you're going to be completely safe. And I'm still in contact with him, speak to him all of the time. And nothing's happened since, nothing's been at the house since. So I've been able to, with the help of his carer, obviously, we've been able to keep things really positive for him. And it was a positive experience. And once I'd explained it to him and I said, I just think this thing's come because you're really, really sick. And what, in a way, it almost saved him, because he was that hysterical when I spoke to him. They felt it was better to get the doctor in, which we should do anyway. Whether I'm doing a paranormal thing or anything, we've got to get the doctor in. He's 88. And the doctor said, I think you're running an infection. We need to take you into hospital. And he did. He had like a urine infection. It made him really, really sick. So almost in a way, if that event hadn't happened, he wouldn't have got the antibiotics that he needed. So we can look at it as something that's come to terrify him, or we can look at it in the sense of, was it actually there that night? Because it looked shocked to see him. And that's why I didn't feel like he was in danger. Do you get what I mean? It was almost like he can see me.
Mm-hmm. I think when it comes to the wolf, dogmen, whatever, you mentioned it earlier, I do think they have something to do with the other side, as in, I don't know if they're protectors of the dead, or anything like that, but there's been so many people that have said they've seen them around burial sites.
Yeah.
And I don't know what religion it is, and I could be completely wrong, but I've heard before that they've had these types of things. They were like the guardians of the underworld.
Yeah,
And
I kind of see it like that. Yeah.
and I don't know where that originated from or where I found it. It's just something that I've read somewhere before, but they said that these creatures were originally designed to be like the guardians of the underworld. So they're not
Mm.
necessarily evil, they're not necessarily good, they are what they are. I was
They
like,
just are. Yeah.
yeah.
That's the way that I look at all beings. They just are. Like we put a human connotation onto it, don't we? And that's what we do as human beings. But we're all dealing with things we don't understand, you know. And I think sometimes, don't get me wrong, I think paranormal investigators make it worse. Sometimes I think if they go into a house and they don't understand what they're doing and they just suddenly go straight to what I call a satanic panic of it's a demon, I think that brings a lot of negative stuff on the house. And then that paranormal team packs up and goes on. And the family are left to have to deal with all of that, you know. So there's certain places in the world, like Cannock Chase in England, where paranormal teams you probably got 2 or 3 teams every night down there, you know, trying to summon something or open this dimension or that dimension. And then they get in the car and they go. And what's left is all the things that frighten the locals that the locals are seeing. So like Cannock Chase is a 27-mile radius. There's probably 33 cases down there of like werewolves and black-eyed kids and all manner of strange things. And I just think since there's an ancient site there called Castle Ring, it's been there about 800 years. And I think that's the energy source. But because people have meddled, you know, so many times down there, there's like pockets that you can walk into that are just awful. Like make you almost like infrasound, like make you feel sick to your stomach or drop to your knees and things like that. And people report all manner. They report them to the police. They report them to the newspapers in the UK. All kinds of strange things happening there. But I think that's human intervention and humans doing what they don't understand. You know, some people don't want to learn. So you can say to people, you do close everything down before you leave, don't you? Oh, there's no need to do that. Well, actually, yeah, there is. There really is. You should be sure, you know, what we've done here tonight is over and everything's closed and then you walk away. Because you just left a big gaping hole in the veil and anything can come through, you know, and you have no idea if that anything is bad, good or indifferent.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because it's humans, isn't it? It took me a long time to learn. I thought I knew everything when I was like late teens, early 20s, but life taught me some very valuable lessons.
No. Eventually, for me, I do my podcast in my house, but I'm trying to
I do.
move mine out. I don't want it to be in the house because I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if I'm not bringing in, even though I'm talking to people through Zoom or whatever it is we end up using.
No, I know what you mean.
I don't know if I'm opening up something to come into my home. So as a precautionary thing, I'm trying to do it not inside my house anymore.
I'm similar, but unfortunately financially I'm stuck like that for a while. So I just have this little ceremony that I go through myself, even before me and you spoke, and I just say like, whatever I speak about now, it's just a private conversation between me and you, and you're not allowed to interfere in any way or hang around or any of those things. And I have this ritual me where I ground myself. We'll finish having a conversation, me and you, and I'll take my shoes off and I'll go and stand outside on the grass for a minute or two. And then I'm fine. But that's just my little ritual. Everybody kind of comes up with their own. But I get what you mean. When you work in this industry, you don't know what you're invited, do you? Home. And it's just one of those things. It's just one of those things. And if there's anyone out there in the UK that thinks that you need our help or you'd be interested in helping other people, like, please get in touch. Because I can keep a note of where you are. If you've got, don't matter whether you've got experiences to meet or not. Doesn't matter, like, disability-wise. My mobility is shocked. So I can't do a lot of going around the woodlands now or any of those things that I used to do. But I'm really good at putting people in touch with each other. So that's what I'm trying to do in a minute. I'm trying to set up some support groups online. Because there's some people really going through it at home with the things that they're experiencing, and there just isn't enough of me for me to deal with all those cases. So going forward, I think this year that's where the majority of my work's going to lie. So if you're out there in the UK or anywhere else in the world and you think I can help in any way, just get in touch with me, please. And I will give you a link, Brandon, for my link tree so people can get in touch with me. Yeah, and I can help them out.
Yeah, I'll include that in the show notes if you want to shoot me over whatever links you want to. And then anyone listening to this episode, they can just go right there and find it.
I will. So is it all right with you if we kind of wrap things up for this week?
Yeah, that's fine.
Brilliant. It's just I need to feed my husband.
No, that's fine. I do appreciate you coming on here and talking with me. And again, if you want to let everyone know where they can find you at, and then
I've made things really easy. Just put Debbie Hatswell in. I've made sure that everything is Debbie Hatswell, BBR Investigation. So if you just put that in YouTube, you'll find me. My email address is just debbiehatswell@gmail.com. And like I say, I'll send you that link over and make it easy for you. And if you want me to come back on, or you've got any questions or anything like that, just shoot them over to Brandon and he'll get in touch and let me know.
Yep, definitely. Well, Debbie, I appreciate you coming on here and talking with me. It's been a pleasure.
You're very welcome. I've enjoyed it. Hopefully I'll get to chat to you again.
Yeah, we'll definitely be in touch. Thank you.
Night, everyone.
Good night. Remember, the truth lies in the stories we share, the connections we make. Stay curious, stay open-minded. Thank you all for joining us on this journey, and until next time, keep questioning, keep seeking, and keep exploring the unknown. Good night, everyone.